Hi, I'm David Fleming from the Disciples Ignited YouTube channel, where we are focused on Jesus, advancing his kingdom and preparing his disciples. Now we're in the book of Romans, and we have just started in the 3rd chapter. If you didn't listen to yesterday's video, be sure to catch that, because we're going to be building off of that. We're in Romans chapter 3, where Paul asks us a question. What advantage then is there in being a Jew? Well, in yesterday's video, we learned that God decided to make a nation to be his very own, so that he could use that nation to bring all the other rebellious nations to himself. And that is the beginning of the Jewish people. Now, we learn about this in Exodus chapter 19, verses 5 and 6. Let me read that to you. Out of all nations, the Lord said, you will be my treasured possession. Now remember, he's speaking to the Jewish people. Out of all the nations, you will be my treasured possession. Although the whole earth is mine, you will be for me a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. Now, let's back up a little bit. Where was God going to get this nation of people? Well, he had to start somewhere, so he chose a man named Abram. Now, who was Abram? Abram was not in a relationship with God to begin with. He was a heathen. He worshiped idols. So what was it about Abram that God chose him? I mean, God was going to choose Abram and use him to literally birth a people that God was going to claim as his very own people. So what was it about Abram that God chose him? Well, it certainly wasn't that Abraham was so great or had any merit of his own. It was all because of one thing. God saw in Abram a willingness to put his trust, his faith in God and God alone. We read about this in Romans chapter 4, verse 3. Abraham believed God, and it was credited to him as righteousness. From the very beginning, when Abram, which was his name before God changed it to Abraham, when Abram had a revelation of the Lord, Abram began to put his full trust in God. And because Abram put his trust in God, his faith in God, God credited that to him as righteousness. And through Abraham, God brought forth a whole nation of people that was going to be totally God's own, his own nation. Now, the Lord spoke of this nation of people, the Israelites. In Isaiah 49, verse 3, we're told why God created the Jewish people to begin with. He said, you are my servant Israel, in whom I will display my splendor. So there we have a hint of why God created the Jewish people through Abraham, so that God could use the Jewish people to display his glory, his splendor. And then in Isaiah 49, verse 6, the Lord went on to say, I will also make you, speaking of the Jewish people, I will make you a light for the Gentiles, that my salvation may reach to the ends of the earth. Now, we're able to answer Paul's question where he asked in Romans chapter 3, verse 1, what advantage then is there in being a Jew? Because now we have an understanding that God raised up the Jewish people for a divine purpose, to display his splendor, and to use them as a vehicle of drawing all other nations, rebellious nations, back to himself, so that all mankind could be in a relationship with the Lord. Oh, we've just begun. So join me tomorrow, and we'll begin to unravel this some more. I'll see you again tomorrow.